Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the March 6, 2019 Land Use and Housing Committee meeting. I saw Councilmember Ward, Campbell is here, and Councilmember Sherman are present. First of all, I'd like to welcome all the members of the public who are attending this committee meeting today. For those of you who have not been to one of our committee meetings, I wanted to explain how you can participate. On the table in the back of the room near the door, you'll find a speaker slip in favor or opposed. If you'd like to speak, please fill out a slip and bring it up front to the wooden box that's near the lectern. Our committee consultant, Kevin Smith, here will make sure to get it. If you'd like to cede your time to another speaker, please indicate on your slip. And if you would like to register your position but do not need to speak, you can fill out a slip and check the box at the bottom indicating that you do not wish to speak. So the first thing we'll take up is the approval of record of action items for February 6, 2019. Do I hear a motion? Okay, Chris, Councilmember Ward and Sherman. Okay, and so all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, so motion carries unanimously. Next, we're going to go to the non-agenda public comment, where members of the public may speak on any item not on today's agenda. We have, looks like Terry Skelly, or it might be Jerry Skelly. No, S-K-E-L-L-Y.
Thank you for this opportunity to share my concerns about marijuana protection facilities, MPFs, and occasionally a marijuana outlet, a retail storefront, that have been coming to our Mira Mesa Planning Group for review, which is a step in the Process 3 business applications. Planning Group members welcome the opportunity to meet the applicants of these businesses because it matters how the land is utilized in our area where we work and live. However, we felt that this important opportunity was denied us when an application for a marijuana outlet on Carroll Road came before the Planning Commission on February 14, 2019. This application was originally heard at our planning group over 4 years ago, and when there was an applicant named Radislav Kala. When it showed up at Planning Commission, it had a new applicant, Green Road LLC, Rick Eberstein. Of course, it is already problematic that applicants hide behind LLCs. The state permitting agency, the BCC, Bureau of Cannabis Control, requires that a marijuana business applicant reveal all shareholders with more than 20% financial investment to be listed. Perhaps San Diego should do the same. However, my reason for being here is that Mira Mesa Planning Group should have had the opportunity to receive a presentation from the new applicant. This location, 7625 Carroll Canyon Road, is a busy corner and intersection where severe driveway problems that impede the flow of traffic and safety to pedestrians. It seems that a marijuana business storefront replacing the quiet, unobstructive, and valued U-Haul rental company at this location. No one could agree that we need a marijuana storefront in this area because it is located around the corner from another pot shop on Miramar Road. Planning Group proposed...
Last sentence, please.
It is important that marijuana businesses, the people behind them, have a transparent beginning in our city, and everyone would be better for it. I think you should go back and look at this application again since it's over 5 years old.
Thank you for your comments. The next item is committee comments. Do any committee members have comments? No? Okay. Next item is mayoral, city attorney, or IBA comments. Does anybody have a comment? No? Okay, with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda, which has 5 items. Do we have any public speakers? No? Okay. So do I hear a motion or move to consent? Councilmember Sherman and seconded by Ward, Councilmember Ward. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, okay. Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to our main agenda. For the public's information, we're going to be taking item 7 last today. Other than that, we're going to go in order. So first we'll hear item 6, authorizing the execution of a 20-year nonprofit lease agreement with the Timken Museum of Art. Please begin your report whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I would like to... went off. Good afternoon. My name is Roswitha Sanchez. I'm with Real Estate Assets. To my left is Isabel Thompson, our Director of Real Estate Assets. And I would like to present to you today the new lease agreement for a 20-year lease, a non-profit lease with the Putnam Foundation, doing business as the Timken Museum of Art, which is located in Balboa Park. First, a little aerial view. To the center left is the Timken Museum, and right to the left you see the plaza area, which is now included in the premises, within the premises, and it's adjacent to the Plaza de Panama in Balboa Park. And here we have a frontal view of the museum. As you can see, it's unique in Balboa Park. It's a mid-century modernist building. It's only 1 story high. And again, the plaza in the front, then there's a tree line. And so when you look from the Plaza de Panama, the building is a little bit hidden because of the tree line, and it's a one story building. So I'd like to go over the background a little bit first. The city leased the premises to the Timken Museum in 1962. And the lease has been on holdover since October 2015. The Timken opened to the public in 1965. The museum was built by the Timken family and subsequently donated to the city. It is the only museum in Balboa Park whose admission is always free to everybody. The Timken serves over 250,000 visitors per year. And so now the Timken would like to get a new long-term non-profit lease agreement with the city. They're asking for 20 years and 2 5-year options. And the reason for this is because they're planning an underground expansion. They need to be able to raise the necessary capital for this, which will cost probably a minimum of $10 million. And the main focus of this expansion, of course, is more space. As I said before, it's a 1-story building. It's not very large. The Timken would like to create additional space for exhibitions, for conservation, an art resource library, classrooms for training and free education, since the Timken offers free educational programs to the public, and the Children's Activity Center and Art Resource Library. And so this new lease differs from the existing lease a little bit, as it also includes now the plaza area, which I explained before. So it's a little larger because, again, the Timken would like to expand underground underneath the existing building and a portion of the new plaza area. The lessee agreed to pay the yearly nonprofit rent of about $3,597, which will be adjusted per year based on a CPI index, which is very common for most of our nonprofit leases outside of Balboa Park. The lessee will be allowed to operate a coffee cart outside of the museum in the plaza area, because they would like to activate that area to draw in more potential visitors. And the Timken agreed to pay 10% of gross revenue to the city if they operate the coffee cart. The lessee also will share 50% of any sublease income with the city, which also is pretty standard for city leases outside of Balboa Park for non-profit and for-profit leases. Now, the building maintenance responsibilities are very similar to that of the existing lease and of other cultural institutions in Balboa Park, which means the tenant is responsible for repair and maintenance of the interior of the building, and the city is responsible for the exterior. The only exception is once the lessee improves the property, all the maintenance responsibilities will be their responsibility. Now, the fiscal considerations, as I mentioned before, the minimum of $3,597 rent will be deposited annually into the general fund. And lastly, staff recommendations. The staff recommends the approval of authorization to execute the 20-year lease with the Timken Museum of Art. Declare that the lease agreement is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and declare that the Council of the City of San Diego has determined that an exception to the exemption as set forth in CEQA guidelines does not apply. And it essentially means that the lease is exempt from CEQA because it's an existing facility, and all future projects will require approval then, whatever approval will be. And that will be determined by DST and various codes. That concludes my presentations. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you. We have two speakers, Mr. David Kinney and Ms. Megan Pogu. Mr. Kinney, if you could come up to the mic, please. And Ms. Pogu, if you could come up and be ready to speak.
Thank you very much,
You'll have
Chairperson.
3 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Chairperson Moreno and committee members. I'm Megan Pogue. I'm the Executive Director of the Timken Museum. I just wanted to say thank you for this entire negotiation process. The city, Parks and Rec, Reed have just been really, really wonderful and cooperative with us trying to work through all the intricate terms of this lease. I do want to say our chairman of the board, Jesse Knight, is disappointed he couldn't be here today, but we do have another board member, David Kinney, who would like to speak a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, Chair Moreno and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I will try to be very brief. I wanted to second Megan's comment about how great it's been to work with the various people and departments in the city on this. Parks and Rec and Real Estate Assets, Rose and Sibel. It's been a really great experience, and we're really thrilled with our lease. I wanted to talk just briefly about the Timken. We feel really privileged to have a museum in Balboa Park, and because of that, we also feel a strong obligation to be accessible. And we approach that accessibility in a number of different ways. As you heard, we are free. We're always free. We've been free for 50 years. And I'm happy to say last year, over 250,000 people took advantage of that free admission. We have, most of our lectures are free. We have a number of free activities. We work with schools. I had a number of things to talk about, but with 3 minutes, I'm not going to be able to do that. We do work with Juvenile Hall, with combat vets. We help bring people into the park. We work with the school district, San Diego Unified School District, going out to classrooms. It's not just activities in our museum. We work in a program with the Balboa Naval Hospital as well. We also work with patients with Alzheimer's. We bring them in and have a totally different approach to going to a museum with them, and that's been a remarkable experience. I just want to end by saying, at the Timken, we feel Balboa Park essentially is a gift to the public by those who are willing to participate in making that gift. Top of the list, of course, is the city of San Diego. But it takes donors, it takes volunteers, it takes board members, it takes organizations like Friends of Balboa Park and the Balboa Park Conservancy. And we feel by having an incredible collection of masterworks and being open for free that we are participating in making that gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to committee comment. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Chair Marino, and I want to thank Timken for coming forward and for working with the city to negotiate through this opportunity. Certainly really appreciate all the work that you do as a museum. You are unique in the park, really right there in the heart of the park, and the free opportunities that you provide for San Diegans and visitors to see an ever-changing mix of art and opportunity there. I certainly support your mission and the work that you're doing, and as one of our institutions in the park, we are really happy to be able to, that you're located there, and that you provide the value that you do. And I know that you're embarking on this capital campaign as well, and I really want to congratulate you for taking that effort to make further improvements and expand your footprint to be able to do even more. So I understand that part of this negotiation is the social benefit that the city is going to be able to receive, even though this seems to be somewhat low of a rent opportunity. The benefit that we otherwise are getting right now is priceless. So I really I do approve the lease going forward as it is. I do have one question for staff, and that has to go with where these funds are coming to. I know the lease is not much, $3,600 a year, give or take, plus escalating on CPI. But then we have 10% of the coffee cart revenues and 50% of subtenant opportunities as well. For the rental lease, it says it goes into the general fund. For the other two, my staff has been talking with you about possibly a Balboa Park operating fund. That's not in existence today.
It doesn't currently exist, so right now that money would be going into the general fund.
Okay.
But if at some future date there's a Balboa fund established, then that would be a logical place.
I'm very much looking forward to helping to drive that opportunity, much like we have a dedicated fund for revenues from within the Mission Bay Park for that fund. I'd love to see that replicated for Balboa Park.
Yep.
I would like to say in the interim there, just so this doesn't get lost in the black hole of the general fund, I would like to actually amend the action so that, and I'm happy to move the I guess resolution, the action for the authorization for the amendment, but I would like funds actually directed towards the Regional Park Improvement Fund. It's a first step. I know many of those funds do make their way to investments in Balboa Park, but it doesn't get lost in the black hole of the general fund. So with that amendment, I'm happy to move both the lease agreement and the two environmental actions.
Thank you, Councilmember Sherman.
Thank you. I'm happy to second that motion. Just a quick question. I understand on financing and those types of things, the need for an extended lease and having that opportunity, and I applaud and appreciate the museum's commitment to doing the improvements on the building. If for some reason they fall short of their funding, or if they don't get to do those improvements that they were hoping to do, is there a clause in the lease anywhere that allows us to revisit this after such a period of time, or is it 20 years, $3,600, and so sorry we didn't get the improvements?
It's a 20-year lease agreement, and they did need that term in order to conduct a fundraising campaign to raise the $10 million, but there's no punitive measures in the lease.
There's no way to
if they don't
look at
raise
it
the
after
10 million.
10 years if they haven't done anything with the building at that point.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sure you'll come up with the funding and those kind of things, but it might be something to consider for future leases, because totally understand the need for having a extended period of time leased so you can obtain the funding. But if for some reason after a period of time that's not being able to happen, we should be able to relook at it to see if it's going to happen, so they're not just getting the same lease in perpetuity and didn't come through with what they wanted to come through with. But knowing the Timken and the people involved, I'm sure they'll be able to make it happen, but it's just something to consider for future reference.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
That was the second, right? Okay. Thank you to staff for working diligently with the Timken to come to an agreement on a new lease. Also, thank you for the Timken for all that you do. The access you provide members of the public for free is valuable. In addition to enjoying the park's beautiful features, being able to access a museum like the Timken free of charge is critical to exposing our residents to beautiful works of art. In fact, I think the Timken has a Rembrandt in its collection, right? So That's awesome. And I appreciate the changes made in the lease to pay the nonprofit rate and for the city to receive income from subleasing. And speaking to Councilmember Ward's point, I hope we can get to a point where the money we receive from these leases can be invested back into Balboa Park so we can put it forward into major repairs that some of our buildings really do need. I will absolutely be supporting this motion to approve, and we got a motion by Councilmember Ward, second by Councilmember Sherman. All those in favor, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we still have the city attorney that would like to make comments.
Thank you. I just would want to note for the record that I would like to check to make sure that it is permissible under the charter to direct the funds to the Regional Parks Improvement Fund, and we will certainly have an answer for you before council.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to hear item 8. It's an informational report from the Housing Commission regarding companion units, a pilot program. And please begin your report when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Moreno, committee members. I'm Jeff Davis, Chief of Staff for the San Diego Housing Commission. With me today are Mike Pavko, Senior Vice President of Real Estate, and Emily Jacobs, Senior Vice President of Housing Finance and Portfolio Management. We are pleased to present to you today an update on efforts by the Housing Commission to develop 2 pilot programs to produce companion units in the city. On September 21st, 2017, the Housing Commission released a report that identified the City of San Diego's housing needs for the next 10 years. This report was developed in collaboration with Councilmember Sherman and former Councilmember David Alvarez, both of whom served on the committee at that time. Accessory dwelling units, also known as companion units, were one of the 5 main sources of potential additional housing units identified in the Housing Commission's report. The report estimated that companion units could produce somewhere between 2,700 to 5,000 housing units in the next 10 years. Importantly, since the release of this report, changes to local and state legislation have reduced fees and permitting requirements to help homeowners develop these companion units. To further explore companion units as a potential source of new housing, the Housing Commission is evaluating 2 new pilot programs. One of these programs would focus on building companion units on single-family properties that the Housing Commission owns. And the second pilot program would evaluate the feasibility of providing loans to homeowners interested in building companion units on their properties. Both programs would complement the city's companion unit handbook. This slide displays a rendering and an example of a floor plan for a companion unit that would be a 400 square foot modular detached unit. The San Diego Municipal Code defines a companion unit as an accessory structure on a residential lot that provides independent living facilities for 1 or more persons. The structure also must be independent from the primary dwelling unit and include permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. Companion units hold the potential to provide several advantages as the city addresses its housing shortage. They present an opportunity to increase production at potentially lower cost in a faster time frame and with a smaller environmental footprint. In addition, companion units create opportunities for homeowners to rent to low-income households, providing additional rental opportunities for this underserved population. And renting companion units also can create income streams for homeowners, supporting their financial stability. Now, Mike will share with you the details of the development pilot program the Housing Commission is evaluating.
Thank you, Jeff. So the companion unit development pilot program would include the initial analysis of approximately 40 single-family homes owned by the Housing Commission to identify locations that may be suitable for the companion units. Through this program, the Housing Commission would develop 2 or more companion units that would represent a variety of square footage options with a focus on serving households with low income. So the pilot program would document the lessons learned through the development process and provide examples with important information to help guide and inform companion unit production in the city, such as the total development costs, the timeline to apply for and receive permits, the construction process, the feasibility of such development, and the oversight needed for this type of project. And for details on the next pilot program, I'll turn it over to Emily.
Great, thank you, Mike. To assist with financing the construction of companion units that would be rented to low-income households, the Housing Commission will analyze a variety of loan products. This pilot program would be designed to evaluate and determine whether such a loan program is feasible. To determine feasibility, we'll look at companion unit finance programs of other cities, whether associated costs are in line with other production options, and analyze the finance process and review what conventional loan products are available, including potential bank partnerships. We anticipate further analysis, new questions may emerge. The potential exists to create companion units currently not available in the marketplace, and perhaps could provide greater flexibility to homeowners, which would help increase housing production and complement the city's handbook. The Housing Commission's goals for these programs are to begin construction in the development pilot program by the end of the first half of fiscal 2020, and to begin implementation of the finance pilot program by the end of the second half of fiscal 2020. The next steps in the development pilot are to engage in due diligence and ultimately develop a lessons learned report. For the finance program, the Housing Commission will initiate a request for qualifications for financial institutions to identify potential participants in the program, and we will further define the program and its feasibility. And with that, we're available for questions.
We have no public speakers on this item, so we're going to turn to committee comments. Councilmember Sherman.
Thank you, and appreciate the report on the information. So the loan program you're talking about, it's to help have an alternative source of financing for people who would consider putting granny flats in their backyards and on their lots.
That's correct.
And would there be any restrictions on, it has to be low-income people that they would put into those granny flats and those types of things to receive the loans?
That's the initial concept, yes.
Okay. And, you know, we're kind of doing everything here at the city to reduce the costs of doing these. So I'm assuming the loan dollar cap size probably wouldn't be that large. I mean, you're probably looking at, do you guys have any idea on what the max loan you would be offering to people would be?
The main part of Pilot 1 will help us understand cost. That's a big outlier in this at the moment.
Okay, because we've reduced the cost pretty significantly around here on getting granny flats built. Just recently, it cost more in permitting and fees than it did to actually build the granny flat, and that's been reduced dramatically, and we're looking at ways to keep those fees down. Appreciate the information you're bringing forward and working on this. This is one of those areas where we can actually provide housing to. And when you say low income, do they have to have gone through one of the programs that your organization offers, or can anybody qualify just based on what their income is?
It's based on what their income is.
Okay, so students coming out of and getting their first place, they could qualify for it since they're at a low income job. It's not that they have to have vouchers and those types of things in hand.
Yes, and again, we'll provide menu of choices after we evaluate the sources of funds used against the actual program.
Yeah, because that's really what we're finding is just there's the subsidized side of things, and then there's a luxury side of things, and there's so many rungs in that ladder that are missing between government subsidized and luxury, and I think this is one of the tools that we can use to provide some of that housing. And again, appreciate the report. I know we've also did a bunch of work, Councilmember Alvarez and I did, about putting together templates, for lack of a better word, or a toolkit on pre-approved design and plans that are approved by the city, and if you choose one of those, you don't have to worry about going through that whole design and approval process. Are you guys been involved with city staff on doing any of that, or is that something that city staff has been doing?
We have been participating in that working group that is doing that, and our main focus has been the finance portion of it, which has been missing in all of it.
I see at least Lowe sitting out there in the audience. So.
Hi, thank you, Councilmember Elise Lowe. I'm the Director of the Development Services Department. I'm really glad to have the Housing Commission here today presenting on this. A lot of opportunities for San Diegans. Development Services is looking at working together with the Housing Commission. We sat on a phone call with the City of Encinitas about the development templates that they have, working with your office and others about what can we do. And I had a recent discussion in regards to ADU permitting with the idea that we can take development templates, right? So actual construction drawings, and get them reviewed by DSD, signed off by our chief building official, and eliminate that part of the review if in fact the applicant wants to use that standard design. So using that sort of a theory, we think that in addition to council waiving the diff fees, with Sandag waiving a fee, potential for more general fund to waive water sewer fees, and with waiving that, maybe we can cut an additional $10,000, $20,000 off of it, so making it inherently more affordable. So willing to participate in your task force and work with your staff and others to make that happen.
Great, I appreciate that, because this is one of the things we'd really like to get done here. We've been working with Housing Federation and Mr. Steele and some of those others on getting this done, and it's taken a little bit longer than I thought it would, and lo and behold, little old Encinitas to the north of us has come up with some things they have, and we can piggyback on some of the plans that they've done. Is that since it's Planet Bids and all that?
Those are plans that are by a certified architect that they're making publicly available. It's essentially free construction drawings, and so that's possible. Yes.
Great. Thanks again, and look forward to working with you some more on this, because I think this could really help generate a lot of that type of housing that we're looking for, that is in between subsidized and luxury. So again, thank you very much for the information, and looking forward to seeing how much further we can get on the templates in the quickest amount of time. So thanks.
Councilmember Ward.
Great, thank you, Chair Marino, and I want to thank Housing Commission staff for bringing this item here forward today. I know we've been talking a lot about ADUs over as a body, as a full council, so excited for some of the progress that we made, and I know we've got a few more things that there certainly is some consensus that we would like to try to achieve in this coming year. And I want to thank you for your leadership to find suitable locations. I really want to dig down with city properties as well, and I've been harping on that for some time, that we all are in this together to find all public land opportunities to do much of the same. So much so that I actually wrote in one of my budget priorities this year to maybe work with you all about if we found $1.5 million to try and do some forgivable loan subsidy program for ADU constructions on possibly some of your properties for those that otherwise would fall into homelessness, because that little seed money there that would actually, either if it's for fee waivers or other opportunities just to make the projects pencil out, the costs of homelessness are far, far more severe. And so we need to be creative about this, and using this as a pilot program is certainly laudable. Agree with Councilmember Sherman about it being time to really bring forward permit-ready plans as an opportunity to really streamline and get new construction up and running. And I'm excited to hear what Encinitas has done. I guess if we're thinking about how cities collaborate, with open data, this is kind of the open data model for ADUs. So it's great that we're learning off of each other and we're not reinventing the wheel. This is really encouraging news. I think that we should dive a little bit deeper into this space, and I look forward to hopefully doing more of that with this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the Housing Commission for developing this pilot program. But I think we're really here because of the vision and the leadership that Councilmember Sherman and former Councilmember David Alvarez had on this program. So thank you for that. These are both innovative methods to increase housing. I am eager to see what your findings are and how we might be able to move forward with the full program. As was mentioned, the City of Encinitas has put together some pre-approved plans that residents could use to build permit-ready companion units. I have the plan right here, and it's pretty simple. if you guys can see. And obviously, this is going to ultimately save time and money for applicants and increase housing units across the city, which is very important to me as chair of the Land Use and Housing. I'm also hearing from my colleagues an interest for the city to put something together. So I definitely am looking forward to hearing from DSD. And thank you once again. And this is an informational item, so no action is required. And thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear item 9. An informational report from the Housing Commission regarding the Housing Production Report of 2008 to 2018. Please begin your report when you are ready.
Thank you. Again, Jeff Davis, and with me is Emily Jacobs and Mike Pavko. At Chair Moreno's request, the Housing Commission prepared a report that identifies the housing units produced since January 1st, 2008 through the functions that the Housing Commission performs to create and preserve affordable housing. An important part of our mission is to provide affordable, safe, and quality homes for low and moderate income families and individuals in the city of San Diego. And the Housing Commission fulfills its mission through the agency's major program functions. The Housing Commission provides federal rental assistance on a monthly basis to more than 15,000 households, owns and manages more than 3,700 affordable rental housing units, partners with the city and service providers to address homelessness, advocates for housing policies, and creates and preserves affordable rental housing. Since January 1st, 2008, the San Diego Housing Commission has helped to create and preserve more than 11,400 affordable rental housing units in the city of San Diego. This consists of more than 9,000 affordable units that have been completed and more than 2,000 additional affordable units that are currently under construction. The Housing Commission has invested more than $220 million in loans towards these developments over the last 11 years. In addition, the Housing Commission has authorized the issuance of more than $1.4 billion in multifamily housing revenue bonds in the same time period. Now, Emily will provide you with more details about the Housing Commission's multifamily housing financing programs, the agency's administration of city programs like inclusionary housing, and some specific examples of housing production.
Thank you, Jeff. One of the Housing Commission's most important roles in the creation and preservation of affordable housing is to partner with developers by providing loans or grants for their developments. Housing Commission loans or grants provides what is known as gap financing. These funds fill the gap in funding that remain after the developer has secured all other available sources of funding. Loans and grants consist of funding from the Housing Commission that the Housing Commission administers, through sources such as Home, CDBG, and the City of San Diego Affordable Housing Fund. The rendering on this slide is an example of a development supported by a Housing Commission loan. $9.25 million toward the new construction of 137 affordable apartments in San Isidro. Another important source of financing is tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. Interest income from the bonds is exempt from state and federal taxes, so affordable housing developers are able to obtain below-market financing. The Housing Commission authorizes the issuance of bonds, subject to the approval of City Council in its role as housing authority. It is important to note that the Housing Commission, the Housing Authority, and the City are not financially liable for these bonds. Private sources of funds, such as revenue from the development, repay the bonds. These bonds also qualify developments for low-income housing tax credits, known as 4% tax credits. Developers also may apply for competitive 9% tax credits. Housing Commission loan financing frequently is an essential source of development funds for projects that seek these tax credits. The Housing Commission also administers city regulations for inclusionary housing and density bonus that produce affordable rental housing on site. The inclusionary housing regulations currently require developers of residential housing to pay a fee to the city, which becomes a source of funds for Housing Commission loans that support affordable housing development. However, developments that set aside at least 10% of their units as affordable for 55 years are exempt from the fee. Density bonus regulations allow developments of 5 or more units to obtain a higher allowed density if the developer includes affordable rental housing on site. And now I'm going to pitch this off to Mike for some examples of developments.
Thanks, Emily. So this slide shows a few examples of a type of quality affordable rental housing that has been completed in partnership with the Housing Commission since 2008. Mesa Verde Apartments opened last year in San Carlos, providing 89 affordable rental apartments. Atmosphere Apartments opened in the Cortez Hill neighborhood in May of 2017, creating 202 affordable rental apartments. Of these units, 51 are for San Diegans who experienced homelessness. The Housing Commission awarded 51 rental housing vouchers to provide rental assistance for these residents who also receive supportive services. And last on this, Mission Apartments in the Midway area provides 84 affordable rental apartments, and this development completed in 2012. So these 3 developments are among the more than 2,000 affordable units at the Housing Commission's partnership developments that are under construction and are expected to be completed this year or early next year. All 3 of these developments are supported by Housing First San Diego, the Housing Commission's Homelessness Action Plan, and includes rental housing vouchers awarded by the Housing Commission, as well as development funds and multifamily housing bonds. So San Isidro Village broke ground last November and will provide 50 affordable rental apartments for seniors who experience homelessness. Lofts at Normal Heights is nearing completion and will provide 52 affordable apartments for military veterans who experience homelessness. And Blue Water in Grantville will provide 79 affordable apartments. Of these units, 8 are for veterans who experience homelessness and will receive rental assistance through Veterans Affairs supportive housing vouchers awarded by the Housing Commission. So each of these developments is also shown on a new dashboard the Housing Commission has created to track the ongoing progress of projects currently under construction, copies of which have been provided to the committee this afternoon. This new dashboard augments the report on housing production, which is a work in progress that the Housing Commission will continue to enhance in the future. It also includes updated information to reflect new developments that have received Housing Commission board approval, as well as projects from previous lists that are now complete. So this concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
We have no public speakers on this item, so we'll go to committee comment. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Chair Moreno. Again, thank you for this report as well. I remember we had the update at Fall City Council during our Housing Action Day last July, so I appreciate some of the updated numbers as well and all the work that you do to really try and make the most of every dollar and be able to deliver more more product to market. One thing that would be helpful for me, and I'm happy to receive this back to my office. I don't know if you're intending on bringing this to the Full City Council or not sometime this year, but in lieu of that, getting some information back, can I get these numbers broken down by year? So one thing that would be helpful for me to be able to talk to constituents, you have basically summed everything up over the last 11-year period and other things that are in the pipeline right now. And what I suspect, based on Housing First 3.0 goals, is that we've seen an uptick in the numbers of units that are both permitted as well as new units that have come online and have been turnkey. So let's show that. We're lumping everything together over a pretty big period now, and I think some of that's getting lost, and I'm hoping that I would be able to see an upward trajectory. I don't want to force the data. I want to see what the data tells me, but let's try to show that, as well as some of the dollars that you've invested. I know that you try to do as much as you can to position San Diego well to get our fair share. We can't subsidize our way out of the affordable housing production needs that we have, but we're doing a better job, I think, because of some of the leadership to try and get more for San Diego. So let's show that, and I hope that we can show that we have done better over time through your work at the Commission. So the only other point that I had was on the inclusionary ordinance, since it was brought up during this conversation and it's something of keen interest for me as well. I wanted to see if you had any perspective on the opportunities or the necessity to be able to revisit that conversation here.
So we are in the throes of stakeholder meetings, and we're getting a lot of feedback in regard to that. We are also working closely with Council President Gomez on the matter, and we'd happy to bring you an update on that. I think we're going to have more clarity on that as soon as next week, and we'd be happy to come and talk to you about that.
Great, we'll look forward to that. Thank you.
Of course.
Councilmember Sherman?
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to kind of ask for the same broken down data on a kind of a yearly basis, if that's possible. I think we'll see the data will show, like Councilmember Moore was saying, is recently we've seen a big uptick, but I think a lot of that has to do with economy, sensibilities, zoning issues. I mean, Grantville has spurred a boom in housing down in Grantville because we pulled Grantville out of the community plan and set it aside and did its own specific little amendment to the plan. And we've seen what government getting out of the way can do. So I'd like to try and track that on a yearly basis to see if it goes along with legislation, it goes along with how we've done certain things. And you talked on the inclusionary stakeholder meetings. How are those going? Are they doing okay? Is everybody getting along, or are they throwing arrows and bombs at each other? How's that going?
They're always spirited, right? So, yeah, they're going fine.
Okay, good. Thank you, and I appreciate, again, the information, and if you could get me that yearly breakdown, that'd be awesome.
Be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Housing Commission for issuing this report at my request. I asked them to produce this report because I think it's really useful to have this information and have it updated as we move forward. I'm eager to see the San Isidro Senior Village project get built, and as you mentioned, it's going to produce 50 affordable rental apartments, which in part was made possible with the San Isidro Community Plan update that increased the density limits throughout San Isidro. So what is the total in lieu fee paid over the time period in the report?
I have that. Yes.
I just sent that to your office, I think, this morning, and I've already forgotten it. I want to say it was 130. No, it wasn't that.
It was a little bit over 120 million. Apologies, we don't have the exact figure. We'll pull it up.
That's fine. It's 123 million. So, thank you. On our housing production outlook, this report indicates that over a 10-year period, we averaged approximately 1,900 units per year. What additional resources do you need to ensure that we increase this production?
I would say that your leadership now to address a lot of the barriers, I'm very encouraged by that. I think you'll always hear us say more gap funding would be ideal, but really can see how the leadership can really move the needle.
Wonderful, thank you. One of the things that we included in our work plan for this year is developing a housing goal resolution for the city. And that's nothing new to some members of this committee. I'm looking at you, Councilmember Sherman. We are working with both the Housing Commission and DSD to bring that forward. So basically, it's a number that we say we're going to focus on targeting a certain amount of units, and that we actually do it. That's essentially what that is for those folks that are out in the public. And using the production numbers outlined in the report, is going to give us a good base to go off of as we look to increasing units in the incoming years. So thank you for your report. I really appreciate it. As was mentioned, this is an informational item, so no action is required. Thank you. And we're going to move on to item number 7, the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. And please begin your report when you're ready.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of Land Use and Housing. I'm Tate Galloway, Program Manager for the Planning Department. I'm joined today by Michael Prince, Senior Planner. and we'll be going ahead and giving our presentation for the Morena Corridor specific plan. Thank you.
With us today is also Claudia Brizuela, Associate Traffic Engineer, and other staff in the Planning Department is available to answer questions. The specific plan implements the General Plan's City Villages strategy by increasing housing in a transit priority area, improving bicycle and pedestrian access to the trolley station, and capitalizing on the Mid-Coast Trolley extension. The specific plan implements the Climate Action Plan's land use strategy by allowing for transit-oriented development, increasing multifamily density within a transit priority area, shifting mode share via improved pedestrian and bicycle connections, balancing modes to improve bicycle safety, and prioritizing the circulation network. The Mid-Coast Blue Line trolley extension has 7 stops along the planned route. The Morena specific plan includes the Tecolote Road Station, one of the few stops that has the opportunity to increase housing capacity along the line. The specific plan encompasses approximately 280 acres along Morena Boulevard between Gessner Street and Friars Road within Claremont and Linda Vista. The specific plan establishes 5 districts to guide the form and character envisioned for each district. There are no changes proposed to land uses within Claremont, as a comprehensive update to the community plan is currently in process. The plan would allow for a significant increase in housing capacity. Currently, there are 996 dwelling units within the specific plan area, all of which are located within Linda Vista. The adopted community plan would allow up to 1,386 dwelling units, and the proposed specific plan would allow for a build-out of 7,016 dwelling units, increasing the capacity within the area by more than 5,600 dwelling units. The major focus of the specific plan is within Linda Vista, encompassing approximately 200 acres highlighted here in blue. Within the area, the specific plan establishes a land use and mobility framework that would transition an auto-oriented commercial corridor into a mix of transit-oriented villages and employment-related uses connected by an improved street system. The proposed land use map increases densities in areas closest to the trolley stations and where significant roadway extensions and improvements are identified. It establishes a transition between higher density residential areas and nearby single-family neighborhoods by maintaining current land uses in the design district, and maintains a majority of the industrial lands within the plan area, which is identified as a sub-regional employment area in the general plan. The design district promotes small manufacturing and goods production that supports local businesses. The general commercial land use designation would be maintained for the area, allowing up to 29 dwelling units per acre in a mixed-use development and serving as a transition between the largely single-family neighborhood of Overlook Heights and the Tecolote Village District. The employment district promotes small manufacturing and goods production that supports local businesses, and the current industrial and commercial land use designations for the district are maintained in the specific plan. The Morena Station District is directly adjacent to the University of San Diego and the Morena Linda Vista Trolley Station. The area is envisioned as a village that provides transit-oriented development up to 73 dwelling units per acre and completes the grid network through roadway extensions and realignments. The Tecolote Village District incorporates high-density housing up to 109 dwelling units per acre with a mix of uses to support the residents, employees, and visitors of the district. The specific plan's land uses are proposed to be implemented through the use of citywide zoning with supplemental development regulations that primarily address building entrances and building height. In Linda Vista, the plan would require discretionary review for any project that exceeds 45 feet. Currently, building height limits within the specific plan area are addressed in the community plan and implemented through the Community Plan Implementation Overlay Zone. The CPAWS currently allows buildings up to 30 feet through a ministerial review process and up to 45 feet through a discretionary review process. The specific plan would allow buildings up to 45 feet in all 4 Linda Vista districts through a ministerial review process. Within the Morena Station District, the specific plan would allow building heights up to 65 feet through a discretionary review process, and in the Tecolote Village District, building heights would be allowed up to 100 feet through a discretionary review process. The plan would also maintain the Claremont Mesa height limit overlay zone. In response to comments received at the Planning Commission workshop and through meetings with the community, we have prepared renderings of potential building massing within the villages as seen from various vantage points within the community. The first rendering is a view of the Tecolote Village from the Tecolote Road Bridge. This is a view from the bridge looking southeast towards the Tecolote Village taken earlier this year. The trolley station is currently under construction. For context, the A1 self-storage and Jerome sign on the left side of your screen, as shown by the arrow, is approximately 55 feet tall. This rendering shows building heights at 45 feet, with the trolley station parking lot shown in the foreground. As part of the Midcoast Trolley Project, the Tecolote Road Trolley Station will include 23 electric vehicle charging stations for future installation out of approximately 280 parking spaces. This rendering shows building heights at 65 feet. And finally, this rendering shows building heights at 100 feet. The second vantage point was taken from Dorcas Street within Overlook Heights. The difference in elevation between many of the homes in Overlook Heights and the Tecolote Village is approximately 50 feet. This is the existing view from Dorcas Street in Overlook Heights. The views in this area are facing southwest toward the Midway community and Loma Portal, and the center of the screen is the sports arena in the background. This shows potential building massing in the Tecolote Village at 45 feet. This shows potential development at 65 feet. And finally, at 100 feet. Consistent with the policies of the specific plan, the buildings are shown transitioning from lower scale buildings along West Morena Boulevard to taller buildings within the interior of the village. The massings shown are for illustrative purposes only. Future development projects will be required to incorporate architectural features to improve visual quality and street frontages. This is an additional view of potential development at 100 feet with greater transparency in the massing to help identify the areas of Midway and Point Loma that could be obstructed by new structures. For the Morena Station District, we chose a vantage point within Overlook Heights looking south toward the village. The difference in elevation between this area of Overlook Heights and the Morena Village is approximately 75 feet. This is the existing view of the Morena Station District. This shows potential development with buildings up to 45 feet and the Morena Boulevard extension shown in the middle of the screen. And finally, this shows building heights up to 65 feet. The proposed mobility network of the specific plan will establish a modified grid street network in Linda Vista to enhance pedestrian, bicycle, and transit mobility and connectivity while also addressing vehicular traffic capacity. The plan recommends reclassifying Morena Boulevard within Claremont to enhance pedestrian and bicycle facilities. The current roadway configuration represents challenges for all modes, with transitions at Linda Vista Road and along Morena and West Morena Boulevard that can cause confusion for motorists and limits pedestrian crossings at major intersections. There are high traffic volumes concentrated around the Linda Vista, Morena, and Napa Street triangle, which creates congestion and difficulties for all users. The proposed roadway configuration would establish a modified grid to alleviate congestion and improve connectivity for all users. The Morena Boulevard extension would provide an additional connection for all users to help establish the grid. We're going to show a rendering of the Morena Boulevard extension from Linda Vista Road to the Sherman Street extension. This is the rendering with new development fronting the street and improved bicycle facilities within the new roadway. In addition to the roadway extensions, the specific plan includes the reconfiguration of the Morena-West Morena Boulevard split into a T intersection that provides pedestrian and bicycle crossings where none exist today. The West Morena-Linda Vista Road intersection would be similarly redesigned and provide a pedestrian bicycle crossing that connects to the Morena-Linda Vista trolley station. Overall, the grid system would improve mobility by relieving congested roadways, reducing confusion, and improving safety for all modes. This is a view of the mobility improvements along West Morena Boulevard with new development in the Tecolote Village. This street-level rendering depicts the mobility improvements, including the proposed two-way cycle track along West Morena Boulevard that connects to the Claremont proposed cycle track. Within Claremont, the specific plan proposes changes to improve mobility, primarily along Morena Boulevard and Claremont Drive. The current plan identifies Morena Boulevard as a 4-lane major, though it currently operates as a 3-lane roadway due to construction of the trolley. The specific plan proposes to reclassify Morena Boulevard to a 3-lane collector. The roadway would maintain the 2 northbound travel lanes and would reconfigure southbound travel to allow for 1 travel lane and a center turn lane. The existing right-of-way would be repurposed to enhance pedestrian and bicycle facilities by creating a 2-way cycle track on the west side of Morena and an enhanced sidewalk on the east side of the street. The 2-way cycle track would connect to the Tecolote, Claremont, and Balboa trolley stations, providing a 3.3-mile continuous buffered bicycle facility along the corridor. The 3-lane collector maintains vehicle capacity for motorists while significantly improving pedestrian and bicycle access along the corridor. This is a conceptual illustration of Morena Boulevard between Ashton and Napier Street within Bay Park. Buildings are shown for context, and the bus bay and cycle track are identified in colors for emphasis only. The reclassification of the roadway could allow for bulb outs and enhanced crossings at these intersections. This is the view of the proposed Morena Boulevard reclassification at the Claremont Drive trolley station, which is currently under construction. The specific plan includes policies to coordinate with Caltrans and Sandag to improve pedestrian and bicycle access across the Claremont Drive and SeaWorld Drive Tecolote Road bridges that connect the specific plan area to Mission Bay Park. As shown here, the plan includes a conceptual design for buffered Class 2 bicycle lanes on the Claremont Drive Interstate 5 overcrossing. The plan also identifies the potential to square up the southbound Interstate 5 on and off ramps at Claremont Drive to enhance safety for pedestrians and bicyclists crossing to Mission Bay Park. Additionally, a policy has been added to the mobility chapter to coordinate with Sandag and Caltrans to provide a separate pedestrian bicycle bridge over I-5 to connect the community of Bay Park with Mission Bay Park. The new connection would improve access from the community and transit stations to Mission Bay Park. Community outreach for the specific plan was primarily conducted through subcommittees of the Linda Vista and Claremont Mesa community planning groups. Each subcommittee held more than 15 meetings throughout the process to provide input on all components of the specific plan. City staff also hosted multiple pop-up engagement booths at community events to gather community input and engage residents in the planning process and bring awareness to the specific plan. The pop-up events provided an informal space for residents and stakeholders to participate in the process who may not have taken the opportunity otherwise. Both the Linda Vista Subcommittee and the Claremont Community Planning Group voted to support a revised specific plan with conditions. The Linda Vista Subcommittee supports a specific plan that provides for 40% affordable housing within the area, building heights of no more than 45 feet, density of not more than 30 to 44 dwelling units per acre, maintaining 4 lanes along Morena Boulevard between Claremont Drive and Tecolote Road, and further discussion with the community on issues such as infrastructure, off-street parking, traffic, and parks. The Claremont Community Planning Group recommended the specific plan with the implementation of the low-density alternative, maintaining 4 lanes along Morena Boulevard, clearly stating that the specific plan will maintain the 30-foot height limit within the Claremont Mesa height limit overlay zone, and prioritization of public infrastructure improvements, including a pedestrian bicycle bridge over I-5, additional parks and open space, and a physical barrier for the cycle track along Morena Boulevard. On February 21st, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the specific plan and provide additional direction. This additional direction includes support for a pedestrian bicycle bridge over I-5, additional urban design guidelines addressing building stepbacks for upper floors in village developments, consideration of density bonus opportunities for projects that provide parks and public spaces, encourages electric vehicle usage within the area, considers residential density minimums in lands designated for community village, the provision of street trees in the cycle track buffer, and additional policies that address off-site stormwater alternative compliance. Ultimately, the proposed specific plan would improve mobility through establishment of a grid network that increases housing capacity to address the current housing crisis and allows design flexibility through increased building heights within the village areas. For consideration, 3 alternatives to this proposed specific plan were analyzed in the environmental impact report. These include the no project alternative, which would not change any land uses, roadways, or building heights within the specific plan area. The low-density alternative would incorporate the proposed mobility recommendations, but would maintain current height limits and cap density in the village areas at 54 dwelling units per acre. The mid-density alternative would similarly incorporate the proposed mobility recommendations, would include the proposed increase in height limits in Linda Vista, but would cap density in the village areas at 73 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommends certification of the environmental impact report and approval of the resolutions and ordinances to adopt the specific plan. And that concludes staff's presentation. We're available for questions.
Okay, thank you. We have 10 public speakers plus an organized presentation on this item. Each speaker is going to have 3 minutes to make their comments, starting with Planning Commissioner Jim Whalen.
Good afternoon, Chair Moreno. Is this on? It is on. Good afternoon, Chair Moreno, members of the committee. Good to see you today. Staff kind of stole my thunder a little bit. You said what we did, but I'll say it again. The Planning Commission found the plan very robust. And you can tell they put a lot of effort in it, and we really appreciated the work that they did. We didn't have a full complement that day, but it was a unanimous 6-0 vote. And we recommended staff's position as well as with 8 amendments, which I'll just repeat. And if there's any questions, we can talk about them. The first one is to support a pedestrian bike bridge over I-5. That seemed to be clearly indicated by all the testimony we heard that it was a good idea to connect the east and the west sides of the freeway. Second one is urban design guidelines to address building step backs for upper floors in the village developments. A lot of times when you see those block diagrams, they end up looking like blocky buildings. You can really fix the way they look if you have step backs on the top. Third one is consider density bonus opportunities for projects that provide parks and public spaces. There really aren't a lot there, and this made a lot of sense to the more open space, the better when you're having density like that. Electric vehicle usage. We're not really getting there until we start tackling the cars, and electric vehicles are a big part of that future, and we wanted to make sure the council knew that we encourage that. Consider residential density minimums in lands designated as community village. A lot of times developers would build underneath the zoning category at the expense of what we're trying to get is housing production. So there's a lot of effort being spent to find out what the optimum housing product type is to increase the number and lower the price and cost. The next one is consider enhancements to visual quality through street fronts and public spaces. It's been our experience that infrastructure is very important to community acceptance of density. We've found much less resistance to density when the community knows they're getting infrastructure improvements too. Second to last one is street trees. There aren't enough street trees in the area, and to provide street trees in the Morena Boulevard cycle track buffer can only make the area look nicer. And the last one is a favorite of mine. Stormwater is kind of my jam. There is almost zero treatment of runoff from Bay Park as it goes into Mission Bay. Tecolote Creek, there's almost no treatment because it's all existing development. This is a perfect opportunity to create a multiple benefit park that also has stormwater treatment benefits. And, you know, if you have the both, you're going to end up having a net improvement in water quality in Mission Bay. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate it. We have an organized presentation in opposition, Mr. Howard Wayne and Mr. James Lamattery. You have time seated by Jane Faulkner, Daleen Magau, Tom Salawanchik, Fran Marsh, Lorraine James, Carol Schliesman, Karen Dunn, Aaron Coolin, Sharon Griffin, Carol Baker, Peter Rambo, Thomas Harrington, Wilma Goodness, Robert Shandor, and Felicity Sinoski. And I understand, so in total you have 57 minutes that's available to you, but I understand you need about 10 minutes.
I'd like all 57.
Absolutely. We will definitely give you 57 minutes. So start your presentation.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm James Lamattery. I'm the spokesperson for Raise the Balloon. We're a grassroots community group formed back in 2014 to get public participation in this plan. I want to bring your attention to the two major transit hubs in the plan, Tecolote Village and the Morena Village. What's not shown on most of this stuff is location. So Tecolote, Morena Village, the Bay, and the Pacific Ocean. Approval of the requested land use changes without first closing the in lieu fee loophole opens the door for ocean view luxury rental projects at these two districts. In my conversations with the developers of both areas, neither plan to build on-site affordable housing and will instead elect to pay the in lieu fee. There's not much this committee can do about the desire of the site's developers to maximize profits gained by the outstanding bay and ocean views, but there is something you can do about the type of housing that will be built there. To this end, our city council will need to fix the systematic problem which is at the core of the lack of affordable housing in San Diego. The in lieu fee, which is allowing builders to escape their responsibility to build affordable housing on site. Until this loophole is closed, you need to make the responsible choice to put this plan on hold until you can give our community an honest and reasonable guarantee that affordable housing will be built on these two major sites. If no affordable housing is built on either transit site, the approval of the land use changes in the plan will be contrary to compliance with SB 375, Sandag's Comprehensive Regional Plan, and San Diego's General Plan, because the mainstay of the plan, dense, affordable housing built within a half-mile radius of transit hub, will never be realized. Please be honest and fair with us and close the in lieu fee loophole before you approve land use changes that will otherwise be a windfall for the developers, but a failure of duty to the community and the Sustainable Communities and Climate Protection Act. I hope Mr. Sherman was able to hear the last of that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. I'm Howard Wayne, and I am the chair of the ad hoc committee on the Morena Corridor Specific Plan of the Linda Vista Planning Group. And I will tell you that Linda Vista is a diverse community, and it is also a home for working families. Therefore, we look at this plan as addressing the issue of affordable housing. The market currently is producing market-rate housing that is causing working people not to have a place to live. They are being simply priced out. The need for affordable housing, then, is the rationale behind the resolution that was distributed to you earlier and it was highlighted by Mr. Prince. I want to start then by saying that I need to bring to you an inconvenient truth, and that is the one that is highlighted in the article from Forbes that I've also had distributed to you. And that is, above a certain level of height, which is about 5 stories, different and more expensive building materials must be used. It, as the article points out, high-rise is not affordable housing. and opposed to, say, garden apartments, which can be. The heights proposed in the Morena Corridor specific plan are not designed to provide for affordable housing. It is simply high-rise, unaffordable housing. Let me just put this thing in a context. This project is built to take advantage of the trolley. I was able to get about $1 million for the trolley when I represented this area in the legislature. But this is a multi-billion-dollar investment by the taxpayers. And the taxpayers ought to be able to capture that value in the form of affordable housing. Now, I know just last Monday, the council voted to eliminate parking requirements. The idea was to make apartments, to make units more affordable. Indeed, Madam Chair, you're quoted as saying, this will permit more units to be built and decrease the cost of building them. Well taken. The council president also said that the decreased cost resulting from the parking should be captured and directly passed on to the renters because, as she said, trickle down doesn't work. The value of the trolley, the value of the parking elimination needs to be captured for the public in the form of affordable housing. Now, we've come up with a number of 40%. Some people have said that's a little high. We said 40% not everywhere, not across the board. We've said it because it's at the trolley line, and there's a significant public investment there. And so we believe this public investment should be captured in the form of an increased affordability requirement. But we add to that the affordability that will be added by the parking changes just voted on by the council. So what we are proposing with our resolution, with what we have asked for, an increased affordability of housing, will actually fit very well with the Climate Action Plan. Because the idea of the Climate Action Plan is to get people out of their cars and into mass transit. Now, a site where you have where you have high-income people are going to have more than 2 cars, or at least 2 cars. They're less likely to use the trolley. They're much more likely to be using their vehicles. Moderate-income people, maybe 1 car in the family, much higher reason to use the trolley. It will accomplish the goal of the Climate Action Plan. In fact, that has been said here is getting people out of cars. Let me back up. The environmental impact report that was prepared for this project found that a lesser intensive development, less than offered by the corridor plan, would mean fewer greenhouse gases would be emitted than by the plan as proposed. Now, I know I'm coming to this at a time when the council is deeply looking at the issue of increasing affordability and increasing the requirement for inclusionary housing. Should the affordability requirement be increased? And should inclusionary housing be required on site? That's a good question. How do we capture the value of the trolley? How do we capture the value of the parking elimination? Whether inclusionary housing should be higher in transit-rich corridor areas such as the one we're facing here. Last week, the Planning Commission, as you heard, dealt with the Morena Corridor project, and they began also to address the issue of increasing the inclusionary housing requirement. And then in the midst of it, as they were beginning to talk through a possible motion, the planning director said, if you do this, you're going to get in the way of accomplishing the Morena Corridor specific plan, and so they put it off. Let me say that that was exactly the wrong answer. The inclusionary housing should be addressed first and then the project taken up. Because why is this? Because if you pass the project as it is, if you pass it without the inclusionary housing increase, the developers will put in their plans, they will get entitlements at the already inadequate 10% and buyout requirements. And so when this project happens, we will miss the boat. We will fail to take advantage of capturing the value of the trolley and of capturing the value of the elimination of parking. Indeed, as we know, the head of the planning department formerly worked at a firm which had a specialty area of getting entitlements for land developers. So what I'm here to ask you to do is to put these things in the right formation. I want this council and this board and this group to act to postpone this motion so that the council can fully address occlusionary housing and what the limits should be, what the requirements should be, and then that this project be taken up with the understanding that it will be subject to the higher inclusionary housing that is so desperately needed in San Diego. Let me say this in closing. The choice is between affordable housing and market rate housing. The choice is between diversity and gentrification. And that choice is, this afternoon, squarely in your hands.
Thank you. We're going to be moving on to in favor. We have Mr. Matt Adams, followed by Tony Kutry and Mr. Matthew Vizalaki. So if you can come up to the...
Good afternoon. Matthew Adams, representing the Building Industry Association, here to speak in favor of the plan as presented. It has been a long time coming. It has been years in the making. There have been, you saw the report, countless meetings, both internal and with the community, all with a simple purpose of trying to identify the appropriate levels of development around a multi-billion-dollar transit center. And this plan moves forward in that direction. And we would ask you not to take action today, but to take action today on this proposal because the city needs this. Your residents need this as well. Having higher densities along transit corridors is exactly what you need right now. You have state density bonus laws that many developers avail themselves of today. You even have your own enhanced density bonus program here in the city of San Diego, where the more affordable housing that is put into a plan, the higher your density bonus. You can do that today. Developers are doing that today. Your own data shows a 400% increase in affordable projects since your enhanced density bonus program is going forward. So let's not miss this opportunity and put this plan in place so we can really get San Diego going. This city is making tremendous progress. I wish more cities were doing what you're doing here. There's a lot of conversations going on throughout the region about what to do about housing. This body is the only one that's actually putting proposals forward, voting on proposals, and implementing proposals. You should be commended for that. Let's not stop now. This is an important plan. It's been decades in the making. Can't just start shifting gears with an 11th hour Hail Mary pass that you're hearing about the affordable issue from the people who've been opposed to this plan from day one. So we would ask that you move forward with this proposal and let's start putting together housing for all San Diegans. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tony Kutry, followed by Mr. Matthew Vizalaki.
I like the way you put the Italians all together. That's good. That energy going. My name is Tony Kutry,
and I'm a resident at Arrive Mission Valley. That's at the corner of Linda Vista, Napa, and Marina Boulevard. So I'm at that 1,000% corner there. I get out of my back door at the apartment building. I get on the trolley every morning and I ride to my office, get off the trolley and walk 2 blocks. I haven't driven to the office. I can't remember the last time. I take Uber if I need to go farther. I typically take the bus or the trolley to my meetings downtown. So it's really an extraordinary experience, and it's perfect. This kind of specific plan mobilizes that type of living arrangement. I'm an architect. I designed the project that I just mentioned that I live in. I've been living there just for the past 2 years, but we did that project about 13 years ago. It was the first non-downtown transit-oriented development. Then it was called MTDB. It's called MTS now. But it was a great project to be involved in. We did that with former council member William Jones at the time, and it was a real visionary project. And this type of specific plan, I think, paved the way for that kind of development. I've known Mr. Wayne for a long time. We worked on the City Heights Urban Village project, I don't know how many years ago. But at any rate, I'm an architect. I've designed over 20,000 units of housing. We're doing projects now totaling over 2,000 units of housing, most of it urban housing. All of the projects have density bonuses in them. All of them have density bonuses, and density bonuses range anywhere from 10 to 35%. 40 would be wonderful, but economically, I don't see that happening. We do some 100% affordable projects. The 1050B project we did was 100%, and that was a high-rise building, a low high-rise building. And we're doing some smaller 100% affordable projects as well. And I think the specific plan would see that happening. There aren't too many developers that do that kind of work and are able to put together the financing necessary for that. I support the specific plan 100%. I think that the planning staff did an extraordinary job, and I've studied it quite a bit, and I highly recommend the approval of it. And I've contacted the councilperson's office saying that I wasn't going to get involved in this community process, but as a community member, I think it's important for me to get involved because of my expertise, so I'm certainly want to be there as a resource for it. But as I said, I think they did an excellent job. Now remember, any exceeding of the 45 feet automatically kicks in a discretionary review process. So it's not as though everybody's going to jump in and by right build things there without the community being involved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Matthew Vizalakis, followed by a member in opposition, Mr. John Zybarth.
Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members, city staff. My name is Matthew Vasilakis from Climate Action Campaign. CAC has one goal: to stop climate change and make us climate safe and climate ready. Creating walkable, bikeable, and transit-friendly communities near affordable housing and jobs is a key part of achieving this vision. We are here today to support the Morena specific plan, a key roadmap for climate action on the intersection of housing, transportation, jobs, and quality of life along the celebrated Mid-Coast Trolley extension. We are also here to support the community and its infrastructure needs. To create a world-class city, we need world-class infrastructure. Just as we were happy to support the inclusion of the pedestrian bridge in the Balboa Station plan to maximize the use of the incredible new transit infrastructure, we support the community's desire for better amenities and safe streets along the Morena corridor. CAC hopes the implementation of the Morena specific plan will meet and exceed the community's expectations while simultaneously helping the city meet its legally binding cap targets, ensuring we can achieve a climate safe and climate ready future. Thank you to city staff for their dedication and hard work on this effort.
Mr. John Zybarth, moving afterwards in favor with Mr. Andrew Malik.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is John Zybarth. As an architect and a planner, it's really hard because my livelihood depends on developers and working closely with planning department and DSD to be critical of this plan. However, When I look at this as being a transit-oriented development project, that creates significant unavoidable traffic impacts, not only on the roadways, but also on the freeway. That's what it says. And if you look at the response to that comment to the PERR, it says, well, that's okay, the council can make overriding considerations for that. So you're making overriding considerations to override significant traffic impacts in the face of saying you're going to be consistent with the climate action plan, because traffic is one of your major factors for the climate action plan. Second of all, as part of the notice of preparation, I identified that you need to look at the fact that we have a really nice new grid system for Linda Vista. What happens if that doesn't get built? It goes right through private properties. We needed an environmental document that actually looked at how much density could be built if that grid system didn't get built. That wasn't done as part of the EIR. So when the response to the comment says, well, individual projects will actually take care of, analyze that when they go forward. But our whole goal here is the specific plan is to actually be able to do ministerial permits so we can actually incentivize people to do redevelopment. We've missed a golden opportunity here because, in my opinion, any project that's over and above what's in our current community plan right now today needs to have a discretionary permit. And I am not in favor of having a discretionary permit for every single project. Now, I've been to about 3 years of these meetings, and one of the things I have said throughout this whole thing, we need to look at why. The community plan, the goal and the objective of the Claremont Community Plan up from 30 years ago was to revitalize Morena Boulevard. Why hasn't it happened? I invite all of you to send a representative to the Claremont Community Plan update next Tuesday night, where we're actually going to talk about some of those things. Because that's what's going to move things forward positively, is understanding why redevelopment isn't happening unless you're a big piece of property like the Tecolote Station or another area where you can assemble it. You got a lot of individual property owners, but can they do these kind of redevelopments, especially with some of the urban design guidelines that have already been that are being proposed? Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Andrew Malik, followed by Ms. Margaret Schmidt.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Malik. I'm an infill developer. And today I'm representing the property owner at 2565 Claremont Drive, Protea Properties. Next slide. This is the location of the property here. Next slide. 2565 Claremont Drive is located at the northern end of the specific plan, and it is directly adjacent to the new trolley station. I'm here today to voice my support for the Morena specific plan with one suggested modification. Some of you may recognize me as someone who has been vocal about shedding light on impediments to building housing. I have advocated for streamlining the process by removing unnecessary barriers that would trigger a discretionary process. The CPAWS overlay zones are one of those barriers, and I applaud the effort to remove them. As currently drafted, the plan removes CPAWS A from the area near the Morena station to facilitate transit-oriented development at that location. Unfortunately, this plan doesn't remove CPAWS everywhere in the specific plan. The site which I'm representing also has a CPAWS overlay, CPAWS B. CPAWS A triggers a discretionary process if height limits are exceeded. CPAWS B requires a discretionary process for every project, including projects that comply with the municipal code and the community plan. CPAWS B does nothing other than trigger a discretionary process which adds time and cost. Removing CPAWS B does not change the zoning, it does not increase height or density, therefore it is not a land use issue. It simply removes a barrier and allows a developer to bring housing units to the market faster. We are currently working with an environmental land use consultant, and we expect to share a report with staff to review that explains that removing CPAWS B would not have significant environmental impacts and therefore would not trigger additional CEQA analysis or recirculation of the EIR. Staff, specifically Laura Black, has been working with us, and I want to applaud her efforts for paying attention to this important issue. In summary, we believe that this change can be made without delaying the approval of this plan at City Council next month. Removing CPAWS B from Claremont Drive would remove an obstacle to providing much-needed housing near transit. Therefore, I'm asking you to consider recommending removing CPAWS B from this plan. Thank you.
Ms. Margaret Schmidt, followed by Kip Zhang.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Schmidt. I am the chair of Claremont's Morena Corridor Specific Plan Subcommittee, and I'm secretary of the Claremont Community Planning Group Board. I know that you've received a copy of the recommendation that was unanimously approved by the subcommittee and by a strong majority of the Claremont Community Planning Group Board. I want to point out today that land use for the area within Claremont is not included in the Morena Corridor Specific Plan because it was removed by a decision of the Planning Department during the process in the fall of 2016. This decision was vehemently and repeatedly opposed, but to no avail. The land use for the Claremont portion will instead be addressed in the community plan update process for Claremont, which is currently underway. It is clearly understood that additional density will most certainly be incorporated into our updated community plan. This increased density was not considered when traffic evaluation was done to justify changing Morena Boulevard from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. Although the right-of-way is limited, it is firmly believed that an alternative exists that would allow for 4 lanes of vehicle traffic along with a multi-use pathway or a cycle track on the west side. Therefore, we ask your support in keeping Morena Boulevard 4 lanes until consideration of changes can be made within the community plan update process rather than changing it now. Next, the Claremont Community Plan recognizes the need for increased housing density within walking distance of the new Midcoast trolley stations. But the proposed height and density at the Tecolote station would have extraordinary impacts on the area and on our adjacent community. We concur with the Linda Vista community that expected significant impacts to traffic, air quality, noise, and community character that would be created by implementation of the Morena Corridor Specific Plan are excessive. Therefore, we request your support of implementation of one of the alternatives studied in the PEIR. Ideally, the low-density alternative, which has the greatest community support, but the mid-density alternative, which is the environmentally superior alternative and thus would meet the specific plan objectives while supporting the climate action plan, also has some community support. Please require implementation of one of these alternatives instead. Finally, there was broad support from the planning commissioners when the Morena Corridor Specific Plan was brought before them for a safe pedestrian access bridge over Interstate 5 to Mission Bay Park. No improvements to the vehicular overpass at Claremont Drive and Tecolote Road would provide the comparative safety to a pedestrian bicycle-only bridge to this preeminent local and regional recreational destination.
Concluding sentence.
While the bridge is alluded to in the specific plan, there are no triggers or requirements for its construction. We ask for your support of this infrastructure project and that you require inclusion of a stipulation that it be completed prior to the development of greater than 2,000 units in the specific plan area.
Sentence, please. Just one more sentence, please.
Yes. We hope that this committee will agree that any planned increased density should be matched with planned infrastructure, public improvements, and community benefits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kip Zhang, followed by Ms. Stephanie Benvenuto.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Kip Zhang. We've been talking a lot about, residences and housing. I have a business. I'm the managing director of a small kitchen remodeling business on Morena Boulevard. The back of the building is on Naples Place, and I'm speaking. I'm concerned about the businesses in the design district of the Morena Corridor Plan. The front of the building is on Morena Boulevard, and the rear part of the building is on the Naples Place. And because we're not a manufacturing company, we don't build anything. We get shipments of cabinets and other accessories through Naples Place. It's a 15-foot wide street, one way, and our trucks can barely, navigate through that street. Based on the plan, I understand each is, based on individual projects, but I just want to have it on record that for the Cushman to West Morena connection, the proposed connection, if that were to be developed and built and shut off Naples Place, then all those businesses on that street would have a big issue because we wouldn't be able to get any deliveries going through. The option was just to have a good design where Naples Place hits Cushman, and it's going to be engineered in a way that there would not be any impediment for delivery. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Stephanie Benvenuto, followed by Mr. Michael Hunsucker.
Hi, good afternoon. Stephanie Benvenuto here on behalf of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're very pleased to be here in support of the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. We want to thank staff. They've been very communicative and very open with our membership. Our members who reviewed the proposal felt very strongly that the densification around the trolley line is a positive move because it will leverage our significant investment into that trolley, and it builds with an eye toward reaching our cap goals. Additionally, the densification is a tool that's going to allow us to have a continually diverse neighborhood, to house more folks, and to take a bite out of our housing crisis. Additionally, we want to say that we appreciate that the plan makes sense out of what is already a pretty confusing network of roadways in Linda Vista, and it significantly enhances mobility options, particularly with regard to biking options. We're pleased to be here in support and ask that you vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Hunsucker.
Michael Hunsaker. Michael Hunsaker. I own property in the Mission Bay area. The greatest environmental and development limitation problem we have is water. There's been recently in the UT an article about the water and the issues that revolve around that. We need to have all new developments planned for water conservation. There was a study in 2010 about water uses in various residential environments. The apartments had losses of 12 to 17% of all water. Single-family dwellings also were at around 10 to 12%. During the last drought period, when we started putting in conservation efforts, one of the things that came about was that those who had single-family dwellings were very conscientious about stopping leaks. The leakage from single-family dwellings tumbled to 1 to 3%. Apartments stayed at 12%. The biggest thing you can do for water conservation is to put in meters for every apartment. That makes leakages a simple matter to detect and fix. The other issue is this is about the only utility which is not individually metered right now. Up in San Marcos, where I live, I'm in the Vallecillas Water District. I found that recent development have as many as 40 apartments on 1 meter. It's impossible to do any sort of water conservation with master meters, and there's no way to eliminate the greatest loss of water there is in this state, which is leakages out of apartments. So if you want to take serious high-density development, make water as metered individually as it is in the single-family dwelling. That has worked. Those communities have conserved. They have sacrificed. Why not have that same requirement on apartments and high-density developments? There should be no exemptions of any type. And how do you manage to control and monitor individual use without individual meters? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Gale.
My name's Sharon Gale. I'm here because I support more housing in San Diego, especially more housing near public transit stations. We need to allow larger buildings, denser buildings, taller buildings near transit to accommodate more people within walking distance. And don't assume that people who choose to live next to a trolley will choose to instead drive and not use the trolley. It's not logical. And more transit, more people next to public transit means city saves money on subsidies for public transit. More customers save us money. So I would hope you support a dense project here, that you support the Planning Commission, that you support the City Planning Department. Thank you.
The following members of the public would like to register their opposition to this plan, but do not wish to speak. Mr. Kurt Martin, Mike Baker, Patrick Phillips, Rolando Augut, and Teresa Augut. That concludes our public comment on this item, and we're going to go to committee comment. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Moreno. I'd like to start by thanking my community for being here today, and I'd like to thank staff as they've attempted to work with the community to plan the future of our wonderful communities along the Morena corridor. Everyone involved is looking to ensure that the community continues to grow and improve over the next 30 years, beginning with our investment in the Mid-Coast trolley line. Sadly, this process has been contentious throughout, as the neighborhoods of Linda Vista and Claremont have seen surprising reversals from the City Planning Department over the last 4 years. Whether it is stunning increases in height limits up to 100 feet, stunning increases in density levels of over 100 people per acre, removing promised infrastructure such as pedestrian and bicycle bridges. This plan has been twice changed drastically just since November of last year. Promises made under the seal of the city to our community planning groups were twice suddenly rescinded or ignored as the process came closer to this hearing. This is unacceptable and has left nearby residents frustrated and without recourse. What makes these matters worse is that Morena Boulevard has been changed back and forth twice by the city from a 4-lane configuration to 3 lanes, 2 going north, 1 going south. The Planning Department is asking this community to quintuple the number of dwelling units while reducing the lanes on the main thoroughfare through this area going south. Sadly, I cannot support this plan. This final version is contemptuous of the good faith efforts of both the Linda Vista and Claremont planning groups that have worked for years to plan for affordable and expanded housing and to beautify this area. And I want to add that the Linda Vista planning group even asked for 40% to be affordable housing. To see a community's next 30 years laid out against the wishes of the hardworking residents is utterly disappointing for me and against the ideals that made me want to be a public servant. This plan should go back to the drawing board, and the citizens of the neighborhood should not be ignored. We need to reform our affordable housing requirements before these new developments get grandfathered in, as Mr. Wayne discussed. The 8 items raised by our Planning Commission should also be included in the specific plan documents. And so I move to postpone this plan until it takes into account these proposals that I just mentioned. Please vote to postpone this plan so that we can come back and vote on an even better plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sherman.
First, I want to thank everybody for being here today and expressing your opinion. Thank you to staff and all the effort you've put into this. I think the plan as presented today with one slight modification needs to be moved forward out of this committee and sent to the full council. It's a very good, well thought out plan. To those who are talking about the affordable housing issues, I just invite you to come to Grantville. We did the same thing in Grantville and did a specific plan around a trolley station, and with the low-income density bonuses that contractors and developers are allowed to use, we're seeing over 25% affordable housing built in Grantville. That's well over what the inclusionary requirements are today, and it has financial incentive to do it because of the density bonus. We have a housing crisis here in the city. For too many years, we haven't kept up with the demand of people being born here or moving here. We created less housing this last decade than we did during the Great Depression. And we wonder why people are moving out and our kids can't afford to live here. I have a daughter in another state. I've got a son, 30 years old, with roommates because they can't afford housing in here in the city because we haven't built any to keep up with the demand. I remember my father used to have a coin laundry business where he put coin laundry machines in apartments all over town. He got out of that business in the 80s because the city wasn't building any new apartments and we weren't getting any new accounts. The problem is still here today. I have 2 real questions here. Also, I think this thing was thought out pretty well. It goes to 45-foot height limit. You don't need any reviewer to go through any of the process, but over 45 foot, it goes into discretionary process, and you have to go through the entire process from beginning to end and get permission and input and all those types of things. All the different bodies have to weigh in.
That's correct. Any development over 45 feet within Linda Vista requires a discretionary review, including notification to the community planning group and review by the planning group.
And what's the height limit there now?
So the current height limit is within Linda Vista allows for 30 feet through a ministerial review process and then 45 feet through a discretionary review process. So the proposal would allow 45 feet through.
We're adding a story and a half that would be allowed by right, basically?
Correct.
Okay. To me, a story and a half isn't that big a deal. I really appreciate the slides that you showed of the views and how those would be affected, because that's one of the reasons I've been supportive of development in Mission Valley along transit corridors and along this area of the trolley stops, because currently your views are of buildings. In the future, your view will be of different buildings. That's pretty much it. Couple things I was curious about. The CPAWS B that was mentioned up at the other end of Claremont, that's not in this plan now? That's not part of this proposal here today?
Councilmember Sherman, Laura Black, Deputy Director in the Planning Department. Thank you for that question. Since the department made the decision not to touch any land use changes within the Claremont Community Plan, the proposal by Mr. Malek is not before you today. It has not been noticed, and since it is part of the Land Development Code, should the committee want to consider this to be included in this item, we would have to take it back to Planning Commission and notice it properly and ensure that the CEQA analysis is proper as well.
My concern is we've been trying to get rid of CPAWS to make things easier, and I just was hopeful that we don't want to add extra delays to trying to remove CPAWS up there. Do you know where we are in the process and how long it would take to look at that if we were to put that into the Claremont update? I mean, do we know when that's supposed to come through? And I know I'm putting you up against a timeline, and that's never good, but.
Sure, we're currently working on the Claremont Community Plan update process, and over the next few months we'll be talking about land use changes within the community, and that would be one of the items we would consider.
Because that parcel that was discussed is, I think, a very important connectivity portion of the entire trolley stop and where it's located and everything else. So I want to make sure that we're not getting in the way of developing stuff that makes sense over there. Also, thank you, Councilmember Campbell, for your comments here today. And the one that rang true with me is about the 4-lane as opposed to 3-lane on Morena. How wide is that buffer that you're talking about between the bike and the roadway? Because I noticed, if I remember on the slide, there was a concrete something there, and if we ever put something in with concrete, the city never takes it out. So
hello, Claudia Brizuela, Associate Traffic Engineer in the Planning Department. The buffer that's depicted there is typically, it ranges from 5 to 8 feet.
And that's the concrete buffer?
And that's with the 3-lane, the proposal for the 3-lane
so we could
configuration.
Maybe take that concrete buffer down to a smaller buffer and leave it as a 4-lane connector? Because my biggest concern is in the future, we're putting in these units and we want to encourage mass transit and we want to get people out of their cars for greenhouse gases and those types of things. But the car will probably change to adapt with that, and we'll have electric, environmentally friendly cars. We're still going to be on the road. I still think I still think that corridor needs to be 4-lane, and with the possibility of reducing it down to a 3-lane in the future if we see the need correspond. But right now I think the need for the vehicle traffic is going to be there as well. So I didn't hear a second to the motion from...
So we do have a motion by Councilmember Campbell. I did not hear a second, so the motion does fail.
Okay, then I would offer a substitute motion of staff recommendation on everything except the Morena corridor road there, where it would be 4-lane instead of 3. That would, and let's keep it at 4 for now, with the ability to make it 3 if the traffic statistics show up in the future with the development that's going there.
Councilmember, for clarification, I think what you'd be asking for is to change it from a 4-lane major to a 4-lane collector. That would allow for the cycle track.
Right, we want to affect the cycle track. I don't want to do that, but I still want to allow for 2 lanes in each direction for vehicles. That would be perfect. That would be my motion then.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Chair Moreno. I want to thank staff for years of work on this effort, and I want to thank the community for years of your thought and input as well on this kind of critical feedback. I definitely have been thinking about some of the points that were raised here today, and they've actually modified my thinking a little bit as well about how I actually want to move forward on this project. Let's start with some of the positive. First, I want to thank you for taking a critical look at an area that I don't know how this was created 80 years ago. It was in a pretty disorganized way, but your work to provide, I think, some safety and some corrective opportunities for traffic flow, for pedestrian safety, I think is going to give us the backbone to be able to do better community development here. So thank you for looking at that critically. And those will be major public investments for not just this neighborhood, but the surrounding neighborhoods as well. I do regret that we didn't look at the Claremont Drive trolley station as well. I understand that's coming with the Claremont update. But the same issue that I have with the Balboa Avenue specific plan update, that we weren't looking at that side of the freeway as well, and I talked about that at council a couple of weeks ago. Same issue here. I kind of wish if we're taking a concerted effort to have a specific plan that really is generated specifically because we are aligning this with some of these trolley fronting investments. So that's a little bit of a lost opportunity. I'll look forward to listening and working with the community on some of what we want to do around there to maximize that opportunity as well. I love and I appreciate the work that you're doing to actually get a protected bikeway along Morena Boulevard. To Mr. Sherman's point, and I want to underscore this, if we revise this to a 4-lane collector, we would not be losing the two-way cycle track, correct? Is there a way that can fit in our right-of-way?
That's correct. It would be able to fit with a reduced median width.
But protected?
Physically separated, yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's going to be a critical feature for me to be able to support for all the work that we're trying to do to connect to other communities as well. I think you did a great job of thinking about many of the mobility and transportation options as they leave some of these proposed transit stations and really getting people safely into and out and around throughout the community. I recognize this is a long-range plan. This is not going to be leveled and built up in the year 2022. This is something that happens over time, and so we are going to continue to have these kinds of conversations with all of our communities, and as all the individual property owners decide that it's time for them to actually move forward. But we are a built-out city, and we have to be smart about where we build up. We also have to be thoughtful about existing conditions, and so that moderated growth and trying to make sure that we get something that's going to work harmoniously while we transition to a bigger city into the future is the sweet spot that I'm trying to get to here. And so I like that there is actually a 45-foot cap by right, and that we have ongoing discretionary review that's going to require community input for any other additional height limit above that. But I'm particularly touched by my friend Howard Wayne's comments as well about what we're trying to do here when you actually add development intensity and you're adding opportunity here around some of these for social benefit to be able to have more affordable housing on site. I have been steadfast for well over a year now about individual projects and not approving anything with at least 10% on-site affordable. And so as we are making trolley investments and we're trying to connect all of these dots, it is critical that we have affordability at these locations too. I'm grateful that the community is really pushing the envelope and interested in seeing a 40% threshold. I think that that's high. I think that required nexus study will probably never allow us to get to that, but I appreciate your generosity about thinking about that as a part of the overall program for those sites. But I do know that post AB 1505 that the legislature passed, we have the ability to move forward, and this is, part of the reason why we're really trying to push some of us on the inclusionary housing ordinance. Why can't we have an inclusionary requirement for a specific plan area? I understand we're trying to tackle this citywide, but we have some upzoning here, and we can do something up to 15% without a nexus study.
I would ask Deputy City Attorney Corinne Newford to address that, please.
Thank you. As you noted, recent case law does allow for the city to require the affordable units on site. However, state law also requires the city to provide a reasonable means of compliance with that. And they've identified what they consider to be potential reasonable means of complying with that, whether it be in lieu fees, also providing affordable units at another site, allowing the developer to dedicate land for affordable housing, and allowing the developer to acquire and rehabilitate existing residential units. So it can be done. You just need to find those alternative means of complying and being able to implement those alternative means.
So were I to second this motion, I'd like to see if there'd be a further amendment that Mr. Sherman might want to accept to direct or request the city attorney provide us an analysis of the opportunities under AB 1505 to require on-site inclusion of 15% for the upzone properties around the trolley station.
Yeah, I'd be happy for the city attorney to look into it and give us a report on that.
Before it comes to city council.
We would also need to confer with the planning department on what some of those alternative means would be and kind of the timing for some of those.
Yeah, I just, and to Mr. Wayne's point, it's not as far as I think he'd like to go, but I don't think we should be losing any opportunity at this moment to maximize some of these potentials for a better opportunity for other San Diegans as well. And the last thing that I'll mention as well, so if that can be a part of the direction before it comes to city council, that would be helpful. The last part is around the design district. I'm deeply concerned with some of the existing businesses that are there. I wonder if, I understand that the intent of it is small scale and craft and kind of geared towards small business interests, but there's a lot of light manufacturing. There's a lot of jobs that are there right now. I'm worried about some of these mom and pops that have been around for 50 years because they also have been a part of the community, and this has been a transition area as well. I understand the specific plan is designed is meant to actually buffer and transition that out well over time. But I'm also aware that a fiscal analysis was provided in 2014 for some of these efforts, and I'd like to see if I could, not as a part of the motion, but get a commitment on the record if you can provide some kind of update to council on that fiscal analysis, because it's been several years for the land use changes in that zone. The fiscal impact analysis.
Given, I would say a couple things. When that analysis was done before, we had looked at changing the land use within the artisan district to a different level of intensity, as well as the employment area. With this proposed plan, we're keeping the zoning and land use the same as it is right now in the current plan, so there would be no impact in terms of the loss of jobs in those two employment areas. And given the amount of time right now, we wouldn't be able to go back and do that level of comprehensive review for.
So if I could, with the planning department, I'd like to explore this further before it comes to council, and happy to take a meeting in my office on fiscal impacts. Excellent. Okay, well, with that, I'm looking forward to making more and most of this opportunity. It's certainly something that will still allow for additional community input above 45 feet as it goes forward, but, this is absolutely a critical intersection of community development that we have across our city, and it is paired with these major investments that we're doing, which is what we should be doing citywide around transit stations. So I want to approach this carefully. I'm happy for this to move. I'm happy to second the motion and see this move forward today, but I'm going to have a more critical review as this approaches City Council.
Thank you. And thank you to all the members of the public who took time out of their day to be here today. Also, thank you to our planning department staff for developing this proposal over the last few years. Increasing density is something we need to do across the city. 2 years ago, the community I live in San Isidro, upzoned their community plan so that more units can be built. That was the right thing to do because each community needs to contribute to increasing density across the city. The simple fact of the matter is that we have a housing crisis. There are not enough units that are within reach of middle income and low income residents. If we do not change how many units can be built in San Diego, this crisis will continue to grow. Doing nothing is not fair to the people who are not able to find a place to live that fits the need of their family, nor is it fair to future generations. We also need to make sure that we're building more public transit, and ensuring people have access to it. As we build more public transit across the city, we will be encouraging people to get out of their cars and reduce green gas emissions. I am supportive of seeing this specific plan move to council, and I am happy to support the motion. Now, we do have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Sherman, seconded by Councilmember Ward. All those in favor of the motion, say aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 3-1. And this concludes our meeting. The meeting of Land Use and Housing Committee is officially adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 10th, 2019. Thank you.